All right, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. So, I'm Wade Foster, and we are here today with Allison Groves, who runs community here at Zapier, and she's going to be teaching us a little bit about how to use Gmail in kind of some interesting ways. But before we get started, let's go over a few logistics. So, you're listening to this on Google On Air Hangouts, hosted on the Zapier blog. If you have questions, though, you can scroll down just a little bit, and you'll see a chat room there. You can chat any questions inside that chat room, and we'll be listening, following along to the chat and storing up the questions. And we'll make sure to leave a little bit of time at the end to go over any questions you all might have. Also, there'll probably be some Zapier folks hanging out in the chat room too, so answering your questions as we go along. So, without further ado, I will introduce here Miss Allison Groves, who's going to be chatting to us about Gmail automation. How's it going, Allison?
I'm good. How are you, Wade?
Pretty good.
Thanks for getting up with me this morning. I know it's kind of early where you are.
No problem.
Well, welcome everyone. Like Wade said, my name is Allison, and I help take care of our community here at Zapier. And I think one of our, if not our most popular integration, I know it's definitely way at the top, is Gmail. And what's great about Gmail is it's so flexible. I'm sure that those of you who use it for this specific reason, but it's so flexible and there's so many things you can do with it. But just like any other form of email, it can get really overwhelming. So I want to kind of take everyone through 4 or 5 different ways that we can automate Gmail with apps that you use and know and love. And hopefully, if you're not already using these apps, you can it'll spark a little bit of interest. Maybe there's something that you want to try. At the very least, we hope that we can kind of show you a couple of different ways to save some time. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we will get rocking. Let me grab this. There we go. So the very first Zap that I love to talk about when it comes to Gmail is actually using Google Docs with Gmail. And this particular automation is kind of new to me. It wasn't something that I had really thought of until pretty recently, but I really kind of see the power behind it. And I know, and Wade and I will kind of chat a little bit about each of these. For this particular automation, what's really cool is that if you do any sort of not necessarily bulk emailing or mass emailing, but if you find yourself sending the same email to a bunch of different people, but you want to kind of keep that experience personal, this is a really great way to do that. So, for example, if us internally, we at Zapier like to reach out to our users and talk to them about the different integrations that they're using. So, we might reach out to some of you about Gmail, since you're a Gmail user. And an easy way for us to do that is kind of to create this automation where we can send you an email that comes from us, and we want it to come from us, but we can automate a little bit of it. So if we're sending the same email maybe 10, 20 times, all we have to do is just quickly add a spreadsheet row, and that's going to automate that email out. And I'll show you how that works. So the very first step you can see I have set up here is obviously I'm going to take a Google Docs brand new spreadsheet row and automatically send an email. And so we'll kind of quickly go through this. We've connected our Google Docs account, we've connected our Gmail account, and if you haven't done that already, you can easily do that right here from the Zap. It just takes a couple of seconds. And then we need to say, this is the spreadsheet I want to use to send to help me automate these emails. So to do that, I've actually already set up a spreadsheet, and you will need to do the same thing. So we'll need to know what information we want to kind of take over to that email. So here, clearly, we need to know the email address of that person. We want to know their name because we absolutely want to, address them by name, and we want to know the app that they use with us that we want to talk about. And I mean, again, you can do this with any number of things, but if there's emails that you want to send, but you want to tweak just a couple of things, even if it's maybe just the name, and maybe you've got an appointment that you want to keep with them, any sort of information that you would want to kind of change up, you put that here in the spreadsheet. And so then when I come down here to step 5, and I can start matching that information up. So I click on insert fields here, and I see all of this information from my spreadsheet. So I've got the email of the person that this particular email is going to go out to, their email address. I can fill out a little bit more information about this particular email if I want to, but I'm going to skip down to the really good stuff here. So the subject line and the body of the email is where this kind of comes into play, right? So again, I have already said that this is a couple of things that I want to swap up. So we're doing the app plus Zapier. So if the app is always going to change or something is going to change in your subject, you can do that there. But the body is where this really kind of comes really into play, because you can see I want to address them by their first name. I've got the variable here that changes. So every time this email goes out, it's going to be the same information, but just those little tweaks that we need to make it personal, to do what we need to do, but to save us just a little bit of time. So if you find yourself sending the same email a lot, but you want to change the information, this is an awesome and quick way to kind of automate that. Wade, do you have any other particular use cases that you like for that integration?
That's the thing that reminds me of is the classic mail merge. It's almost a better, more efficient way to do mail merge with spreadsheets. So yeah, the doc outreach is a great way to do it. Anytime you send a templated email to a lot of people, but maybe an email marketing software is a little too heavy for that sort of thing. So it's definitely good for like the ad hoc sending of email.
Yeah, I think even like if you're setting different appointments with people, anything like that, it could be really cool way to change up that information. Kind of in the same vein, I know a lot of people really like this particular integration, and you can see Wufoo is just here as an example, but we're talking about any sort of form or survey. So if someone completes your form, completes a survey, you can automatically send them an email. And we use this all the time. I imagine a lot of you do too, but just a really kind of quick and easy way to either thank someone for either filling out your form or taking your survey, notifying yourself of an entry. So I've got this set up with a nonprofit that I work with. So anytime anyone fills out their form, they get an email notifying them of that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of do this. So, you know, whether you want to send an email to the person who completes the form or the survey, or you want to send an email to yourself, it's very simple and easy to do, and it just takes a couple of seconds to set that up here. And just like the last Zap we set up, you can kind of take that information from the form or the survey and insert it right into the email. So whether or not that email goes out to you or them, it's already automated and done. So I actually set this up for myself. So anyone who comes to this training session today, I got an email about it, so I know who you are, and I know that little extra bit that you want to learn, so I can constantly keep that in my mind. But I can also use this to reply to anyone who filled out the form. So I'm sure you noticed that if you filled out our form to sign up for today, we sent you an email. Now the difference between what I'm showing you here and the email that we sent is a really sort of important thing to point out, and that is that Gmail will only allow you to send 500 emails a day. And so this particular training session that we set up is really popular, right? Because Gmail is such a popular app and everyone wants to learn about it. So we couldn't quite send that many emails. So if you think that you're going to be sending a lot of emails from your form or your survey, what you'll want to do is you'll want to actually use a transactional email service. And we just wrote this blog post about this yesterday. My teammate Matthew wrote this. It's great. It will take you through all of those types of transactional emails. And I'll make sure everybody has a link to this in the resources here. So that's just an important thing to remember. This is a really great automation to use, quick and easy to set up to notify yourself or someone else, thanking them for filling out their form, giving them more information, whatever that might be. But there is that limit to how many emails Gmail can send, and this is across anything. So regardless of what you connect to Gmail, you just want to keep in mind that you can only send those 500 emails a day, and if you need to send more, you would need to look into a transactional email service, and there's plenty of those that Zapier connects with. But on the form side, we have so many different forms and surveys that you can use. So it's not just Wufoo, it's Gravity Forms, SurveyMonkey, JotForm, Typeform, unbounced landing pages, anything like that you can connect through Zapier and send out those emails from Gmail, again, either as a notification to yourself or back to the user who filled out that form.
Yeah, this is pretty cool, Allison. The thing I love about the form software is that forms are used for anything. It can be like a lead form on your site. It could be an event registration form. It could be a simple contact form. Lots of forms. And at minimum, you can set something up like this just to confirm that you've received their message. If you want to go further, you can send them cool automated messages about upsells, confirmation emails, just a lot of stuff that's kind of pretty easy to set up here versus, you know, having to program a lot of the stuff yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that with the myriad of services or apps that we have an integration with, whatever you use, form-wise, survey-wise, whatever that might be, that we've got plenty of options for you to just very, very easily automate any of that sort of follow-up or outreach that you need to do with Gmail. Next brings me to probably one of the most widely used, and I imagine I've said that about everything that I've talked about today, but this stuff is so robust and so great, and there's so many different uses of it that people like really get great use out of. But tasks, and I know that tasks are something that is just really a part of our everyday lives. I used to personally use my inbox as my to-do list, and that just got out of control because there's just so many emails that come through, whether there's things that I actually need to get done or, you know, any sort of mailing list that I'm signed up for, etc. So using Gmail in this particularly creative way can really help you get a hold of your tasks. And tasks, as far as apps go, you can see I have Trello selected here, but this can really go all across the board. Let's see if I can pull this up really quickly. You can do Asana. You can do, oh, Wade, you're going to have to help me out with this while I scroll. Evernote. You can do, oh, goodness, what else is out there?
Well, Basecamp, Redbooth, Teamwork, you know, whatever you use for your to-do list, odds are Zapier supports it. Project management is definitely the place to check out.
Yep. So Asana, Basecamp, Slack is a good one. Todoist, yeah. All these great ways to kind of help you keep your tasks in line. And so this takes a little trick, but it's super simple, and I use it personally, and I promise that I think that if you, and I have in the past been very anti to-do list, but this one little automation has kind of changed the way that I work. So what happens here, you can see, I'll just kind of quickly go through this particular Zap, is I use Trello as one of my to-do list systems, my sort of bigger to-do list system. But again, like we said, you can use Asana, Evernote, to do any of those apps that you might use to manage your own to-do system. And we'll skip down here to step 4. And the way that I have this set up, and there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. So I have selected my inbox here, so that's anything coming into my Gmail inbox. And then the key for me is starring emails. So when I get an email that I'm like, you know what, I don't necessarily want to hang on to this email, but I do need to take action on it. It's got a to-do item. It's someone I need to reach out to. It's a partner who needs something from me, something like that. So I have set up this search string here to be is starred. So when I get an email and I say, you know what, I need to add that to my to-do list, all I do in Gmail is star that email. And then I don't have to think about it. the Zap then runs and sends it right to my Trello list. So you can see here, this is clearly an email. I was talking with one of our awesome partners, Close.io, yesterday, and they needed something from me, and I was like, I'm not going to do that right this second because it's something I need to loop some other teammates in on, so I'm going to star the email, and I'm going to send it automatically to my to-do list. So instead of having to come into Trello and write the card or come into my project management or task system and rewrite all that information, I just started the email, moved on, and then it came automatically here. So when I'm ready to take action on it, it's there. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I know that people, you can see the examples here sometimes. Maybe it's from a particular email address and you want to use that. Maybe you use the label system in Gmail and you want to use that. We have a link here that will actually take you out to these advanced searches, and you can set any of these up that you like. I imagine that label and star are probably going to be two of the more popular ones, but you can kind of peruse that whenever you're ready. So like I said, I want to look in my inbox, I want to set up that search string for starred, and then I come down here to step 5 and I say, okay, I want these particular emails to go to my to-do list in the to-do column here, you can see. And then all I've done is set the subject as the name of my task, and then the description is actually the message of the email. So like I said, I don't have to go rewrite that anywhere or even remember to write it down in the first place. All I have to remember to do is like, you know what, I need to do that, I'm going to star it, and it's automatically done. I can't even explain to you how life-changing this is. It just to keep everything together and in line, and our inbox is the center of our universes, basically. So one little tiny automation like this can make such a huge difference for you, and I highly recommend, if you feel like you're struggling with email and to-dos like I have been, this is a lifesaver, I promise. Wade, do you use this at all?
Yeah, this is exactly what I use. So when I go through my email, I have it set up so that when emails that I can reply to right away, I have the keyboard shortcuts set up, so I reply to those right away. And then if I can't reply to it right away, I star it and archive it and send it to Trello, and then move on to the next email. So that way I can blitz through my email, get it all cleared out, nice and clean at inbox 0. And then when it's time to tackle some tasks, I open up Trello, move through my to-do list, and make sure that those things are circled back around on.
Yeah, and this, like I said, this really sort of extends itself out to a myriad of different apps. Wade and I are just big Trello users, but I have also used Asana in the past and really like it. Basecamp is awesome. Any of these, it's less about the actual app that you're using and more about just getting the system down and understanding that this one little tiny automation can really kind of change the way that you work, because it's so many fewer steps that you have to take to remember that you have something to do and actually execute on that. So you can spend more time actually doing the to-dos and less time actually recreating the to-do list to come back to at a later time. And the one big thing here that I'll mention is, for the most part, Zapier only triggers, so what happens here on the left, when the thing occurs. So in this instance, we would say the email is going to trigger the Zap. With Gmail, it's a little different, and it's actually really great. So Gmail actually allows us, and there's sort of like back in the way that Gmail is architected, we can actually see the last 3 days of emails. So if you get an email, and this literally happened to me overnight. This email on my to-do list here came after I went to bed, and when I woke up this morning, I started it and it worked. So as long as this email comes within the last 3 days, we'll be able to see it and trigger on it. I know that's not the case for some other triggers within Zapier, but for Gmail, if you need to take an action on it, just know that that it needs to occur within 3 days of you actually receiving that email. So I always like to bring that up when we're talking about Gmail specifically. The next thing that I want to chat about really quickly is a little controversial. Not a day goes by that I don't have someone tell me that I'm crazy for doing this, but I think that it kind of brings up a bigger point. So notifications with email can be kind of important. For me, it has taken so much stress out of my life because what I actually have done is set up anytime I get a new email, I know you're going to think I sound crazy, but anytime I get a new email, I actually have it send me a text message. So how this has kind of changed the way that I work is instead of stressing all the time about email, I get a notification that I have a new email that just has the who it's from and the subject line. So I know whether or not I actually need to take action on something, either whether I'm out and about or, if I'm not at my computer. And the really nice thing about this is, for me, is it's made email far less stressful. I don't feel like I have to check email 24/7 because it's coming to me, and if something comes to me and I get this text message and I think, oh my goodness, I need to take action on that immediately, I will know. And it's less about constantly checking the inbox and more about being able to kind of have that mindset. But you can do this with anything. I've seen people do this with Slack or HipChat. So maybe an important email comes in that you want to notify the team about, or something that someone in your Slack or HipChat chat rooms need to know about. Maybe you want to send Pushbullet or some other sort of push notification to your phone or SMS. But again, I can't stress how much easier this has almost made my life because I'm not chained to my inbox. It comes to me, and then I can make that decision on whether or not that's something that I actually need to seek out and answer, or that I can kind of wait. And like I said, I know it's a little controversial, but I don't know if Wade operates in this way or not. But I think that if you can embrace it, it's actually really, really powerful.
Yeah, this one is not for me because I definitely want less notifications about email than more. But I do know people who swear by something like this.
Yeah, I've just seen a lot of people use some sort of, I know that SMS is definitely not for everybody, but some sort of notification, whether that's, again, in a company chat room, via some other sort of push. There's a lot of different ways that you can send those. And like I said, I know it's not for everybody, but we do see so many variations of that, so I just thought I would would mention that. A couple of other really quick things I want to mention. There's also really great ways to move attachments. So if you get any attachments in emails that you want to send to other services, this is a one or two, actually way less or way more than one step. It's several steps that you can save. For not having to kind of go out to that service and then grab that attachment. So if you get a new attachment in an email, you can send it to Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that, and it will automatically take that attachment and move it right over to that service. So if you find yourself doing that a lot, setting this up can save you so much time, and it will just automatically do that. Another interesting use case that a teammate of mine brought up to me today that a lot of people get use out of is actually doing RSS, whether that's a new item over to Gmail. So it could be a form of notification, anything like that, if you wanted to send yourself a new email anytime something was updated. So if a blog post was updated or any sort of item in an RSS feed, you could send yourself an email. I know that's really, really popular. Wade, are there any others that you find really useful that I kind of haven't touched on here?
Yeah, there's actually one Gmail action that I find really helpful, which is to create draft rather than send an email. So sometimes you don't want to send the email right away because you want to look over it or tweak it or something. So for instance, I have an email that I have to send out to the same group of people every single month. And so what I do is I have it set up so that I use the schedule trigger, and each month on the first of the month, it triggers to create a draft in my inbox, and it has about 15 to 20 people already pre-BCC'd on the email. It has the template of the email already set up for me, so that all I have to do is change a few things based on what has happened in the last month, and then just click send. So rather than having to go through the whole process of recreating that email from scratch, Zapier does about half of the legwork for me, and then I just tweak the draft in Gmail and click send.
That's really, really cool, and I imagine saves you a ton of time.
Yeah, it's definitely a big time saver.
One other thing I'll point out here before we take a couple of questions is my buddy and teammate Joe Stike has written this amazing blog post on optimizing your Gmail inbox. So I will link to this in the resources that we'll put together as soon as we're done here. If you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend doing it. I've read through it several times, and every time I read through it, I learn something new. So it was an exhaustive research that he put into this, and I know that there's got to be a lot of things in there that people can use and automate and make your life a whole lot easier. Anything we can tackle question-wise, Wade?
Yeah, so we got quite a few questions that are popping up here in the chat room. I'll go off and just kind of cruise through them. We've already answered a few, but we'll go ahead and repeat so for folks who aren't following along with chat, get a chance to hear them. But before I mention, so this recording actually will be available later. So if it'll just when this event ends, we'll set it up so that you can replay it on the same page that you're watching it on. So no problems there. And we'll also send an email out with the recording too. That way you've got it and know when it's available. All right, so cruising through the questions. So one of the first questions that came up is, can you use special formatting when you send an email through Gmail?
You're probably the better person to answer this because I'm such a plain text gal. I know that HTML is going to have a bad time, and so I imagine that that's the same with markup or anything else like that.
Yep, you got it. The transactional email guide is the one that people will want to read here. So services like Mandrill and Mailgun, they'll be able to have more options in terms of how the formatting goes. And as Allison mentioned, we'll make sure that these resources are also on the page when this ends, so that if you're curious about how to set this up with a transactional email service versus using Gmail, you'll have a resource for doing that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, let's see what else other questions we've got here. Oh, so Christina actually pointed out one smart thing. So you mentioned that Gmail has a 500 email a day sending limit, which is true. However, if you use Google Apps, which is the paid version, you can send 2,000 emails a day, which is kind of a cool benefit of having a Google Apps account.
Yeah, and you will know if you have a Google Apps account, that's what we use at Zapier, and so it's not a Gmail address, it is our Zapier email addresses, so it would be your own domain that you're running through Google, which if you're not doing, I actually am a big proponent of that, so that will give you a couple more emails that you could send every day before you would have to get up to the transactional level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one thing you actually did touch on briefly, but wanted to reiterate is, does this apply reactively, or retroactively? So can you apply a label that's 10 days in the past or 15 days in the past in this work?
No. Well, I say no. 10 days, no. 3 days or less, yes. So any emails that you receive either this morning or yesterday or the day before, yes, if you go back and star or label or use any of those other sorts of filters here in, that's actually on the action side. In step 4, so here we go. So any of these search strings that you use will go back in time 3 days. Anything beyond that, unfortunately, the Zap is not going to trigger. But as long as you catch it in that, I guess would be a 72-hour window, the Zap will definitely go back and trigger that. So if you think about something that you want to star or label or something like that, you'll want to make sure that you do it fairly quickly so that the Zap indeed will trigger.
Yeah, it's and in general, that's kind of how Zapier works. It doesn't trigger on items in the past. It's when you set up the Zap, it'll work for new items going forward.
Right.
What's the lag time for triggers happening?
It depends on what account type you have. So our free and basic accounts will trigger every 15 minutes, and everything above that, I believe, triggers every 5. A lot of times you'll see that happen quicker, but as a rule of thumb, you will either see it in the 5 or 15-minute window. If it's hours and something hasn't happened, you definitely want to reach out to us, but anything in that sort of 15-minute window is when you should expect that to trigger.
Mm-hmm. So there were some good comments around the SMS Zap you had set up where folks didn't want it to trigger for everything because that's way too much notifications. However, some folks mentioned that a text would be nice for like high urgency sort of emails. So maybe like there's a client that you really need to make happy or something like that. Can you set up the filters so that only triggers when a certain client emails you?
Yeah, you should be, and I haven't looked at these in a while for Gmail specifically, but you can use these to really sort of trigger off of a number of things. So the custom filters you'll see here go beyond the search string, which you can set up, but if you want to take that even further and maybe a little more granular, you would use these custom filters here in step 4. So anything that you see in this drop down here would be what is available for you to filter on. So we would say the from name contains or starts or ends with or anything that falls into this condition, and then the Zap would only trigger if it meets those specific conditions. So you could easily set this up for name, a specific email address if you wanted to. Maybe there's something in the content that you wanted to filter on, anything like that. And that's a great way to sort of keep the crazy out of it. And yes, I do understand that the way I have it set up is totally bonkers, but it makes me happy. So.
Let's see. So another question. So what are the 2 connections to set up the monthly recurring email from Michael? So Michael, I use Schedule, which is the app it's a native to Zapier app. You don't have to have an account or anything, and it allows you to trigger a Zap either on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis. So I use monthly, and then I use the create draft Gmail action for that one, which is pretty good. We'll make sure to mention that in the show notes here.
Yeah, I will actually set that Zap up, so if anyone wants to use it, you'll just be able to use it with the click of a button. But you can see I've got it right here on my screen. Schedule, you've got your options here, week, day, month, and then to create that draft, which will then, like Wade said, send out, trigger on that specific schedule, but instead of actually sending the email, it will just end up in your drafts in your Gmail.
So Melissa asked she would like to see use cases for Streak. So I think you may have a Streak training session planned. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, it is next week. What a wonderful segue. We've been working with the guys over at Streak and are going to chat this same exact time next Wednesday, so it'll be the 28th, about Streak. I know a lot of people love Streak. I've seen it in action. I don't personally use it myself, but I have seen it in action, and I think it is super, super cool. So I'm excited to work with those guys and show how Zapier can kind of help automate all that stuff in Streak. So it'll be really, really fun.
All right, so here's a tricky question. It's for actually an error that folks are getting about adding a file in a field that doesn't accept files. So the thing here is if you're trying to move an attachment, say from Gmail, into another service, you have to put it in a field that accepts files rather than text or strings or things like that. So if the action service doesn't have a file field, you're not going to be able to move attachments over. But if it does, then you will be able to move that over.
Yeah, sticking with G Drive or Dropbox is going to be just really going to be your best bet here, and hopefully as we move forward in the future, we'll have more options on the file attachment side.
All right, let's see. So I think that's everything here. We've walked through most of the questions. Just a reminder, this will be for viewing online later. It'll be published on this page. The whole recording, including the Q&A and everything. We'll also append a lot of the resources that we talked about. So if there's blog posts that were mentioned, Zaps that were mentioned, things like that, we'll make sure that those are listed as well on this page too. And if you need to get in touch with us, Allison has her information right up here on the screen. Allison Groves at Zapier.com, at Allison Groves on Twitter. If you want to get in touch with Zapier support, contact at Zapier.com or at Zapier on Twitter. The folks there are really nice and happy to help you out with any problems or questions you might have. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm at Wade Foster on Twitter. Anything else that we should chat about, Allison?
No, I think that just about does it. I want to really thank everyone for coming and for listening and asking those awesome questions. I know that Gmail is so robust and there's so many cool things that you can do with it. If we missed something that you want to maybe learn about or just have questions, reach out to me personally. Again, our support team, contact@zapier.com. No question is too small for us to answer. That's what we're here for. So I love chatting about the stuff. I'll talk about it all day. So anything that you might need, just let us know. We'll be more than happy to take care of it.
All right, cool. So as Allison mentioned, we will have one of these again next week covering Streak. Streak is a CRM that's baked right into Gmail. So if you're interested in learning about Streak, stay tuned. We'll have more information on that in the coming days.
Yeah, thanks for co-hosting with me today, Wade. I appreciate it, and thanks again, everyone, for coming out and listening. And like I said, we'll have this up. I'll have all the resources there for you to see. Zap's free to use with one click of a button. Make it as easy on you as we possibly can. And yeah, thanks again.